Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. This game gets a lot of weird opinions, but I think people should be willing to learn more about it at least. In 2002, Nintendo approached Konami to make a Metal Gear game for the GameCube. Supposedly, Kojima himself was approached by Mario creator and Grandmaster Wizard Shigeru Miyamoto for the game. It may be worth noting that Kojima wanted Snake in the next Smash Bros. Game. No proof that this was a bargaining decision, but it is known that Kojima did want Snake in Melee, but couldn't put him in there due to the stage of the development. Kojima decided that the game that was going to be made on the GameCube should be a remake instead of an all-new game, and that a different developer should work on it. Kojima's team at the time was busy with Snake Eater, and said there was no point in having the staff repeat their earlier work, so they tasked the assignment to Silicon Knights, with both Shigeru Miyamoto and Hideo Kojima overseeing the project. But Kojima only filled the role of producer in this, compared to the other games where he acted as director. The plan was pretty much to update the game to look like Metal Gear Solid 2, but the differences were much greater than that. Besides the touched-up graphics, differences included a completely different soundtrack with the exception of one song, done by both Silicon Knights and Konami staff. All the control and enemy interactions from Sons of Liberty were added to this game, the AI was improved, and many of the cutscenes were changed. Originally, the director, and I'm probably going to mess up this name, but Ryuhei Kitamura, pretty much made carbon copies of the old cutscenes. However, at Hideo Kojima's request, they were changed. By the way, major props to David Hayter, who apparently gave up half his paycheck in this project to ensure that all the staff would return to reprise their roles. All the lines were redubbed due to too much background noise in the original recordings. Due to time constraints, the original plan to remake all the VR missions were scrapped. The game was released on March 9th, 2004 in the United States, and apparently failed to sell 1 million units. I know it broke 250,000 because I remember seeing a copy as a player's choice, but the sales are nothing close to Sons of Liberty or Snake Eater's numbers. Hell, I even remember that when I got the game for my birthday in April of 2004, I remember only having to pay $40, so the price was dropping even only a month after the game's release. I still managed to find another copy around 2006 or 7 for about $12, so either the game isn't that rare, or that was a really stupid game vendor. Okay, I know these guys are relatively minor, especially compared to a couple of other characters I'm going to do basically after this. But, yeah, I'm going to do bios on these two guys. So first off, I'm going to start with Donald Anderson, or the DARPA Chief. Donald Anderson started as an expert in weaponry and high-tech equipment and was eventually scouted by Major Zero of the CIA around the early 60s, and requested to join the CIA for his abilities. Up to that point, he had trouble finding a job in his level of expertise due to racial discrimination. Apparently, he wasn't well liked in his new workplace either, since according to Major Zero, they would often have to deal with complaints relating to him 3 days a month. He was on support duty for Naked Snake, who would be later known as Big Boss in Operation Snake Eater, where he was under the name Sigint. And don't worry, that's not an important spoiler. When it's revealed later, it comes along with a much more important detail. I think I'll stop his life story there, though, because after this, that's when it goes into some spoilerific territory. I find it weird that the DARPA Chief went from having a ton of personality in Snake Eater to having no personality in this game. It almost makes me think that the decision to make them be the same person was a last-second one. His character in this game is nothing. He's basically an exposition role meant to do nothing but add backstory, and is nowhere near as memorably hilarious as he was in Snake Eater.
You see, Snake, people are just sacks of shit, and they're full of holes. Fill them up with water, and it's gotta come out from somewhere.
In Metal Gear Solid 1 and in this remake, he is voiced by Greg Eagles, originally under the alias George Beard. I think that's how it's pronounced anyway. And his performance is adequate, but the limitations of his character don't give him any opportunity to stand out. Though, when he filled a new role as Peter Stillman in Sons of Liberty, he showed a great deal of acting prowess. Interesting note about Greg Eagles, he actually voiced 2 characters in the original game, but was only assigned to 1 in the remake, since both of his characters' voices sounded a little too familiar. Some of Greg Eagles' other roles include the Grim Reaper in The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Garcia and Smith in Killer 7, Sergeant Morris in Quake 4, and the leader of the Samedi Gang in Saints Row 2. The only thing I can really say about the Japanese actor Masahiro Sato is that he doesn't really stand out for a lot of the same reasons Greg Eagles couldn't stand out. And the only thing I can really tell that was very different about him is that he sounded much older than Greg Eagles somehow. Donald Anderson has appeared in 4 games. As for Kenneth Baker, there's not much I can say since the only things written about him are revealed shortly. Again, the English actor Alan Laurie, who in the original game was credited as Bert Stewart, puts in at least a good performance. I couldn't find any clips of the Japanese actor, and Alan Laurie seems to only do miscellaneous roles. Kenneth Baker has appeared in 2 games.